Now, I used to naively believe that politicians and the bureaucrats that ran our country were just merely inept. See, I used to think that, well, we didn't always get the best and the brightest, and because of that, our country was a mess. And bottom line, you know what? In spite of their ineptness, they did the best they could. However, my policy, my belief in that has completely shifted. I no longer believe this. It was naive thinking. The last 3 years have led me to a different conclusion. I believe these people are merely malevolent. They're criminals, essentially. That's who runs our country now. I know some of you will say, well, that's a pretty bold statement. Well, what are you basing that on? Well, let's unpack it. Let's look at the hallmarks of what criminals do. Criminals typically lie. Okay, can anyone disagree that we have not heard a barrel full of lies over the last 3 years? Look at all the things we were told that were true that we're now learning. Even those espousing these knew they weren't true. Memos, all kinds of internal documents are leaking these out daily. Criminals try to strong-arm people. They're tyrannical. They do, they use force to overcome their opposition. Am I wrong on this? Look at the protests in Ottawa. Look at the truckers' convoy. Look at the shutting down of bank accounts. Look at people being forced, coerced into taking something they didn't want to when, if they didn't, they would lose everything. That's what criminals do. Criminals have no remorse. All right, so what does that mean? That means they never apologize because they don't see anything wrong in what they've been doing. Have you heard a lot of apologies from the people in charge over the last 3+ years? Have you heard them say, hey, we got it wrong. We're sorry. We didn't realize we were so off kilter. Nope, nary a word. In fact, it's the opposite. They double down. They accuse you of being somebody who's trying to upset the apple cart. You're the one who's a conspiracy theorist. You're the one who's trying to overthrow democracy. This is what they do. Criminals typically in their behavior try to enrich themselves. Have folks enrich themselves? Hell yeah. Look at all the money that's flown through. Look at all the money that's unaccounted for that has just kind of disappeared. This has been a huge cash cow the last 3 years, especially for those that are in running things and in charge. Now, the other thing I would challenge you on this video is the notion of the deep state. Now, I always hear the deep state, and we all understand what that means. I think personally, I would like to change it to the embedded state. These are the people that are never leaving. These are the people that are always going to be there, no matter who's in charge. These people are also criminally minded. They're not just inept, because they are, through their hands, billions of dollars flow. So what does that mean? What's the solution? Well, the solution is that the people that tend to run for office typically are people that are narcissists, sociopaths. That's the common traits. People who are all about themselves. So how do we change that? Well, we try to find people who are not so much about themselves, that they do not only put themselves first. We want people that are well balanced. That means that we as citizens have to do our due diligence. We have to demand better politicians, better leaders. But it also means that we have to be prepared to accept the truth. We can't just live in a world of lies. When we have politicians, leaders, these feckless people who tell us what we know deep down are lies, and yet we believe them, then shame on us. We shouldn't be doing that. When we have people tell us, when people leading us tell us that women can be men and men can be women, we should call that lie out because it's a mistruth. It's not factual. And if you still vote for them, shame on you. And that is what we have to do. We have to live with the hard truth of the reality we're facing. Now, it's not going to be easy to get rid of these cockroaches because they're deeply embedded. Criminals don't like to give up their enterprise. It's just too profitable. There's just too much at stake for them. But we're going to have to double down our efforts to work towards removing them. We're also going to have the task of trying to convince our fellow citizens that this enterprise exists, because a lot of them would just like to simply ignore it and pretend it isn't real. They like to just kind of whistle past the graveyard as things are happening, as if they weren't happening at all. And the reason they do that is because most people fear criminals and they fear their repercussions. And they don't want to be the ones who are the recipients of this. However, as we've discovered over the last 3 years, as things have unfolded, that is just simply something we're going to have to encounter if we're going to get to a place where we're going to have better people running things and running the show. Anyway, I hope this has made some sense to you. I would welcome your thoughts and comments on it. Please share it with others. And as always, subscribe to my YouTube, my Rumble channel, my locals. And if you haven't seen some of my other videos, check them out. And I will see you next time.